Bullies threaten the janitor's daughter. They didn't know her stepdad is a federal agent. Maya Rodriguez walked through the hallways of Westfield High School like a ghost, hoping to blend into the beige lockers and faded motivational posters that proclaimed things like "reach for the stars" and "every student matters," cruel ironies that weren't lost on her. At 16, she was small for her age, barely 5 feet tall with shoulder-length black hair that she kept pulled back in a simple ponytail, secured with a worn elastic band. Her clothes were always clean, but clearly second-hand. Oversized sweaters, from thrift stores, and worn jeans that hung loose on her thin frame, held up by a belt that had seen better days. She carried her books clutched against her chest like armor, dark eyes fixed on the floor ahead of her feet, watching for cracks in the linoleum that might trip her up or serve as metaphors for her life. Most students at Westfield didn't even know her name. To them, she was just the janitor's kid, the girl whose father Miguel pushed a mop cart through these same hallways every afternoon, emptying trash bins and mopping up spills left by careless teenagers who saw him as furniture rather than a person. Maya had been at Westfield for 3 years now, ever since her mother Carmen married her stepdad Marcus, and they moved from their cramped apartment in the city to this middle-class suburb with its manicured lawns and judgmental glances. The transition had been jarring, from a school where everyone struggled to one where struggle was seen as a character flaw. She still felt like an outsider, caught between worlds she didn't quite belong to, too poor for the suburbs, but too stable for the inner city. What none of them knew was that Marcus Williams, the quiet man who picked Maya up from school every day in his modest Honda Civic, was a decorated federal agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration. His badge and service weapon were locked away at home, in a gun safe hidden behind family photos, carefully concealed from the suburban life he'd built with Carmen and Maya. He'd specifically requested to keep his work life separate after years of undercover operations and dangerous assignments, wanting to give his new family the normal life they deserved. The stress of his job had cost him his first marriage and nearly destroyed his relationship with his biological son, mistakes he was determined not to repeat. Maya understood this need for privacy. She'd seen the stress lines around Marcus's eyes when he thought no one was looking, the way his jaw tightened when certain news stories came on TV, the nightmares that sometimes woke him in the middle of the night. She'd learned to read the signs of when a case was going badly, when the weight of what he'd seen pressed down on him like lead. Keep your head down, finish strong, get out, Maya reminded herself every morning. Just 2 more years until graduation, 2 more years of being invisible. But invisibility, she was learning, was a luxury she couldn't always afford. The trouble started, as it often did, in the cafeteria. Maya sat alone at a corner table near the kitchen doors, methodically eating her homemade lunch while reading a paperback novel. The cafeteria buzzed with typical teenage energy, laughter, gossip, the clatter of plastic trays and the squeak of sneakers on linoleum. Well, look who's trying to hide in the corner again. Maya's stomach dropped as she recognized the voice. Chloe Brennan stood behind her, flanked by her usual crew. Chloe was everything Maya wasn't. Tall, blonde, confident, wearing clothes that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. Her family owned half the businesses in town, and she never let anyone forget it. Reading another one of your little fantasy books, janitor girl. Chloe's voice carried just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Dreaming about being someone important? Maya kept her eyes on her book, but the words blurred together. She could feel the attention of other students turning toward them like spotlights. I'm talking to you. Chloe's manicured hand slammed down on Maya's book, closing. Ferris, it's rude to ignore people. Beside Chloe, her boyfriend Brad Henley smirked. Brad was built like the football player he was. Broad shoulders, thick neck, hands that could palm a basketball. His letter jacket hung open, revealing her expensive t-shirt underneath. Maybe she can't hear us over the sound of her dad's vacuum. Cleaner, he said, earning laughs from their small audience. The third member of their group, Jessica Park, giggled on cue. Jessica was Chloe's shadow, always ready with validation and never brave enough to stand on her own. Seriously though, Maya, you know you're supposed to eat with the other scholarship kids, right? Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Don't react. Don't give them what they want. She carefully packed her lunch back into her brown paper bag, movements deliberate and controlled. Oh, look, she's leaving, Chloe said in mock sympathy. Did we hurt your feelings? Are you going to go cry to Daddy? Oh, wait, he's probably cleaning toilets right now. Maya stood slowly, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. As she turned to leave, Chloe's foot shot out, sending Maya stumbling. Her backpack spilled open, scattering books and papers across the floor. The cafeteria erupted in laughter, and phone cameras appeared like magic. This is not the place, Maya told herself as she knelt to gather her things. This is not the time. She thought about Marcus's voice during one of their weekend training sessions. Control your environment, Maya. Choose your battles wisely. She collected her belongings in silence while Chloe and her friends continued their commentary. No teachers intervened. No students helped. Maya had learned not to expect either. The harassment followed a predictable pattern over the following weeks, escalating like a carefully orchestrated campaign of psychological warfare. In the hallway between classes, Brad would accidentally shoulder-check Maya into lockers, sending her books flying in spectacular fashion while teachers looked the other way. "Oops, didn't see you there, ghost girl," he'd say with mock innocence, his letter jacket making him look even more imposing against her small frame. "Maybe you should get some lights on that backpack so people can see you coming." The impact would leave bruises on her shoulders and back, purple reminders of her place in the school hierarchy. In gym class, when Maya was inevitably picked last, for teams, a humiliation that Coach Peterson seemed to enjoy orchestrating, Chloe would stage whisper comments about dead weight and charity cases just loud enough for everyone to hear. "I bet she can't even run a mile without collapsing," Chloe would say, examining her perfect manicure. Her dad probably can't even afford proper athletic shoes. It was true that Maya's sneakers were worn and had been resoled twice, but they were clean and functional, which she'd thought was what mattered. Jessica would leave nasty notes in Maya's locker, unsigned but clearly in her handwriting, messages that cut deeper than physical violence. "Everyone knows you don't belong here. Your clothes smell like bleach and desperation. Even your own father is ashamed of you." Maya would crumple these notes and throw them away, but the words lingered, echoing in her mind during quiet moments. The worst part wasn't the bullying itself, it was the isolation that came with it. Other students avoided her, not wanting to become targets themselves. Teachers looked the other way, either not seeing or not caring enough to intervene. Maya began eating lunch in empty classrooms, taking longer routes between classes to avoid the main hallways. At home, she hid it, all behind careful smiles and homework focus. Carmen worked double shifts at the hospital, and Maya didn't want to add to her mother's stress. Marcus was between assignments, spending more time at home, but Maya had learned to read his moods. Some days he came back from the office with tension wound tight around him like a spring. Other days he seemed lighter, more present. She didn't want to burden him with high school drama, but Marcus noticed anyway. He always did. "You've been quiet lately, Mija," he said one evening as they worked together in the garage. Marcus had converted one corner into a small gym, complete with heavy bag, speed bag, and mats for grappling practice, mirrors mounted on the walls to check form, and a collection of training equipment that spoke to years of dedication to physical fitness. The space smelled of leather and sweat and determination. These sessions had started as self-defense lessons when Maya was 14, shortly after an incident where a stranger had followed Carmen home from work. But they'd evolved into something more, a way for them to connect, to burn off stress, to maintain the skills Marcus insisted every woman should have in an increasingly dangerous world. Maya wrapped her hands carefully, the ritual as familiar as breathing, each turn of the tape, precise and practiced. The motion calmed her, grounded her in the present moment. Just school stuff, senior year pressure, college applications, you know how it is. Marcus studied her face as he held the heavy bag steady, his trained eye catching details that others would miss. The slight favoring of her left side, the way she avoided meeting his gaze directly, the tension in her shoulders that spoke of more than academic stress. School stuff, huh? The kind that leaves bruises on your shoulder? Maya's hand flew unconsciously to her left shoulder, where Brad's accidental collision with her locker had left a purple mark. She'd thought her sweater covered it completely. "It's nothing I can't handle," she said, throwing a series of jabs. That made the bag swing. "I know you can handle it," Marcus said quietly. "That's not the question. The question is whether you should have to." Maya paused, breathing hard. Marcus had taught her well over the past 2 years. She was faster than, she looked stronger than her small frame suggested, and she'd absorbed his lessons about leverage, timing, and using an opponent's expectations against them. She could probably take Brad in a fair fight, and definitely handle Chloe and Jessica. But fair fights didn't exist in high school hallways, and there would be consequences for fighting back that went far beyond detention. "My job makes your life different," Marcus said, as if reading her thoughts. "I know that. The need for privacy, for keeping certain things quiet, it puts extra pressure on you, but that doesn't mean you have to accept being anyone's punching bag." 2 more years, Maya said, returning to her combination work. I can handle 2 more years. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. Maya was running late to chemistry class, having spent extra time in the library working on a research paper. The hallways were mostly empty as she hurried toward the science wing, her footsteps echoing off the polished floors her father cleaned every evening. She turned the corner near the main office and walked straight into a trap. Chloe, Brad, and Jessica were waiting by the trophy case, positioned to block the hallway. Maya's stomach clenched, but she kept walking, hoping to slip past them without incident. "Hold up there, janitor girl," Brad said, stepping directly into her path. "We need to talk." "I'll be late for class," Maya said quietly, trying to sidestep around him. "Class can wait," Chloe said, moving to block Maya's other escape route. "We've been talking, and we think it's time you learned your place around here." Maya's pulse quickened, but her voice stayed steady. "I just want to get to class." "See, that's the problem," Brad said, crossing his arms. "You think you belong in the same classes as us. You think you deserve to be here. Your daddy pushes a mop," Jessica added, her voice sharp with cruelty. "You're only here because they feel sorry for you." "Which means," Chloe continued, stepping closer, "you should be grateful. You should be thankful that we even acknowledge your existence." Maya's books felt heavy in her arms. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. No witnesses. No escape. "I am grateful," Maya said carefully. "I appreciate being able to attend school here." "Do you?" Brad asked, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. "Because lately it seems like you think you're too good for us, walking away when we're trying to be friendly, ignoring us when we talk to you. That's not to—" "Shut up," Chloe snapped. "We're talking now." Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was different, more focused, more dangerous. "Here's what's going to happen," Brad said, pulling out his phone. "You're going to get on your knees and apologize for being ungrateful, for thinking you belong here, for existing. And we're going to film it," Jessica added with a giggle, "so everyone can see what happens when people forget their place. Then," Chloe finished, "you're going to transfer schools, find somewhere more appropriate for your socioeconomic status." Maya's hands tightened on her books. This is it, she thought. This is the line. She could picture Marcus's disappointed face if she backed down now. Could hear his voice from their training sessions. There comes a moment when running isn't an option anymore, when you have to decide who you really are. "No," Maya said quietly. The word hung in the air like a challenge. "What did you say?" Brad asked, stepping closer. "I said no." Maya's voice was stronger now. "I'm not getting on my knees for you. I'm not apologizing for existing, and I'm definitely not transferring schools." Chloe's face flushed red. You want to know something funny," Maya interrupted, her voice taking on a strange calm. "You 3 spend so much time worried about where people belong, about who deserves what, but you never bothered to learn anything real about me." "We know everything we need to know," Brad snarled. "You're nobody." Maya smiled then, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Nobody's daughter, huh? Just the janitor's kid?" She set her books down carefully on the floor, movements precise and controlled. When she straightened up, something had changed in her posture. Her shoulders were back, her stance wider, more grounded. "See, that's where you're wrong," Maya said, her voice carrying a new edge. "Miguel Rodriguez is my biological father, and yes, he's a janitor, but he's also one of the kindest, hardest working men I know. And he raised me to never back down from bullies." She took a step forward, and Brad actually took a step back. "But Miguel isn't the only father figure in my life," Maya continued. "My stepdad, the guy who picks me up from school every day in that boring Honda, his name is Marcus Williams. Maybe you should look him up sometime." "We don't care about your stepdad," Chloe said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. "You should," Maya said, taking another step forward. "See, Marcus is a federal agent, DEA, 22 years of service, decorated veteran, expert marksman. And he spent the last 2 years teaching me everything he knows about self-defense." The color drained from Jessica's face. "You're lying." "Am I?" Maya asked. "You want to test that theory?" Brad tried to regain control. "You can't fight all 3 of us." "I don't need to fight all 3 of you," Maya said, her voice deadly calm. "I just need to hurt one of you badly enough that the other 2 remember it for the rest of their lives." The training took over then. Years of weekend sessions, muscle memory, techniques drilled until they were instinctive. Maya moved like water, flowing around Brad's clumsy grab attempt and driving her elbow back into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. Jessica screamed and stumbled backward, pulling out her phone. Maya spun toward her, grabbing the device and crushing it against the trophy case in one fluid motion. "Oops," Maya said. "Accidents happen." Chloe lunged forward, nails extended like claws. Maya caught her wrist, twisted, and used Chloe's own momentum to send her crashing into the lockers. The sound echoed through the empty hallway like a gunshot. Brad straightened up, face red with anger and embarrassment. "You crazy?" He never finished the sentence. Maya's knee found his stomach with surgical precision, and he dropped to his knees retching. The whole confrontation had taken less than 30 seconds. Maya stood over them, not even breathing hard. Around them, students began to emerge from classrooms, drawn by the noise. Phones appeared, recording the aftermath. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the hallway. "You're going to leave me alone. You're going to leave every other kid in this school alone. Because now you know what I'm capable of, and trust me, this was me being gentle." She picked up her books, straightened her backpack, and looked down at Chloe, who was holding her wrist and staring up with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Oh, and Chloe, next time you want to research someone's family, maybe dig a little deeper. You might learn something useful." Maya walked away then, leaving them on the floor surrounded by gawking students and recording phones. She had chemistry to get to. By the end of the day, the video had gone viral throughout the school. "Janitor's Daughter" was trending on every social media platform Westfield students used, but the tone wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of mockery, Maya found respect. Students she'd never spoken to nodded at her in the hallways. Underclassmen looked at her with something approaching awe. Even some of Chloe's former friends distanced themselves from the fallen queen bee. The administration, faced with overwhelming video evidence of the bullying that had led to the confrontation, quietly suspended all 3 aggressors for a week. No charges were filed. Maya's restraint had been evident to everyone who watched the footage, but the real change was subtler and more lasting. Maya still ate lunch alone sometimes, but now it was by choice. She had options. Invitations from kids who'd previously been too intimidated to approach her. She still helped her father with his work sometimes, but now she did it with pride, not shame. And Marcus? Marcus just smiled when she told him about "Zeit over dinner." "Proud of you, Mija," he said simply. "You handled that exactly right." "I was scared I'd gone too far," Maya admitted. "Violence should always be a last resort," Marcus said, "but when someone backs you into a corner, when they threaten not just you but your right to exist peacefully in the world, that's when you show them exactly who you are." "And who am I?" Maya asked. Marcus smiled. "You're Miguel Rodriguez's daughter. You're Carmen Williams's daughter. You're my daughter, and you're nobody's victim." 3 weeks later, Chloe approached. Maya in the hallway, alone this time, without her usual entourage. She looked smaller somehow, less polished. "Maya," she said hesitantly, Can I talk to you?" Maya stopped, curious. "What about?" "I wanted to apologize," Chloe said, the words coming out in a rush. "For everything. The names, all of it. It was wrong." Maya studied her former tormentor. Chloe's popularity had evaporated after the confrontation. Brad had transferred schools to avoid the humiliation. Jessica now ate lunch, alone, a taste of the isolation she'd once helped inflict on others. "Why?" Maya asked. "Why now?" Chloe looked down at her hands. "Because I realized something. You could have really hurt us that day, like seriously hurt us, but you didn't. You just made your point." She looked up, meeting Maya's eyes. "I probably would have tried to destroy you if I'd been in your position, but you're not like me." Maya considered this. "No, I'm not, but you don't have to be like that either." "I know," Chloe said quietly. "I'm trying to figure out how to be different. Start by not making other people feel small to make yourself feel big," Maya suggested. "It's amazing how much better the world looks when you're not constantly looking down on everyone else." Chloe nodded and walked away without another word. Maya continued toward her next class, thinking about transformation and second chances. She thought about her father Miguel, who cleaned these halls with dignity and pride, about her mother, Carmen, who worked double shifts to build a better life for their family, about Marcus, who'd given up his high-stress assignments to build a stable home for people he chose to love. And she thought about herself, no longer the invisible girl trying to disappear into the background, but someone who'd found her voice and her strength. The hallways of Westfield High looked different now, brighter somehow, more full of possibility. Maya Rodriguez walked through them with her head held high, books in her arms, and the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly who she was and what she was capable of. Behind her, other students walked a little taller too, inspired by the girl who'd shown them that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be powerless. The janitor's daughter had become something more than that. She'd become herself.